Hey everyone and welcome to another video guys, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how we can utilize the preseason in order to set ourselves up for success heading into S11. Now just a few quick points about how exactly the preseason works. Now a patch will come out around a day or two after the ranked season ends with all of the new changes, new items, the works, and this period usually lasts around 8 weeks, and during this time MMR can still be gained or lost, which is very important to understand. So usually the preseason is great for doing things like learning new champions, expanding your champion pool, and we're going to go very deep on this within this video. Number two, getting ahead of the curve in terms of meta and overall game pace. And number three, obviously just setting yourself up for a productive and fruitful S11 because momentum is key. If you destroy your confidence in the preseason, you don't set yourself up for success, then again, you're really going to limit yourself in terms of what you can achieve within S11. Now, in my own experiences, guys, it looks like at the beginning of every single year, Riot likes to influence the meta to become incredibly damage-oriented. And through progressive patches and a series of patches, it becomes less and less burst-oriented and less assassin-oriented. Now, my theory is that damage is easier to nerf and tone down rather than to add back into the game. And a whole other tangent point here that I only come up with recently was that maybe this is also just a pure excitement factor as well, where if the season at the beginning is very burst oriented, everyone's building lethality, flat penetrations, very chaotic fun, we're seeing champions like Quinn top, Riven top, we're seeing a lot of assassins like Echo, Katarina, Fizz, Kiana, Zed, things like that, then it's a lot more fun to play, and people just overall just play these champions more than things like Sion mid, Set mid, Ornn, Maokai, and things like that. So maybe there's a whole other factor there of just this pure excitement factor that maybe Riot keep into account. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just reading into it too much. I'd like to hear feedback from you guys in the comments as well to see if you think that might be a factor as well. Now, this way, if you do it this way, you go from incredibly damage-oriented and then slowly nerf it, it will be the most unbalanced and chaotic at the beginning, so at least they know what they have to work with before the competitive split actually begins. So in this little diagram here, you've got the PBE, which is absolute pure chaos. You know, nothing's really balanced. They put max amount of damage in the game or max amount of utility, and it's very, very weird. Then the preseason rolls around, and it's still slightly unbalanced. The preseason won't actually be balanced, and it will be very chaotic. My theory is that it'll be a lot of damage. It'll be a glass cannon meta. It'll be very, very quite psychotic. And then by the time S11 rolls around, the competitive splits are about to start, it will be relatively balanced because Riot have had time to assess the PBE, assess the preseason, in which they have had time to somewhat tone down the damage items they added into the game. Now for my prediction on the meta heading into preseason and S11. So given what I mentioned on the previous slide, talking about how Riot likes to make the meta very damage oriented or burst oriented, and given what I've seen on the, some of the items they're adding into the game, these crazy damage items that give you like invisibility after killing someone and things like that, as well as some of these changes, even the simple ones are things like Darkseal, right? So Darkseal, what it is now is 10 AP, 100 mana, 25% increased healing for pots and refillable pots to 15 AP to 40 flat HP, and you get 5 AP per stack rather than 3 AP per stack. Now, this may seem quite small, but then when you put it in, pair it with some of the other changes where the base mana is actually increasing on champions like Fizz and Echo, it looks like they're trying to influence people to pick more of these champions and reward them for snowballing. Reward them for playing psychotic in the early game and getting a few kills. So again, all of these things are suggesting that it is going to be a very assassin-oriented meta, and we're going to see things like Fizz, Echo, things like Kiana and Zed are going to be very strong. Talon's going to be there. Not to say mages won't be played and tanks won't be played and things like that, but my hunch is that we will be seeing a lot of these assassins, and they will be quite strong. I really truly believe this will be the meta, and then they'll tone them down a little bit as we get into S11. Maybe they won't be as strong, but they still would be quite strong. And then eventually control mages come back in, just like at the beginning of this season. We didn't see as much Orianna and things like that. Then eventually Orianna comes into the meta, Syndra comes into the meta, Azir comes into the meta. All these champions eventually come into the meta. It's not to say you can't play them, but it will be much more difficult at the beginning anyway. Now for a few preseason tips, guys. So with all the changes, everyone's going to be rethinking playstyles, champion identities, effective builds, runes, etc. This is the perfect opportunity for us to learn how to effectively theory craft. And step number one, you got to take in everyone's opinions. You're going to watch my videos, you're going to watch mid beasts, you're going to watch LS, you're going to watch some pro players, some one tricks, whatever it is. You're going to watch all of this content, you're going to soak it up from everywhere. Then you got to create your own hypotheses. And the reason this is very important, guys, is because there are so many differences that just aren't accounted for, whether it's region difference, elo difference, or just stylistic difference. And the perfect example, guys, and I said this when I made my Cassiopeia video, what works for this guy on the Chinese super server at 2000 LP may not work for you in gold and NA, or diamond and EU, or platinum in OS. It just may not work. Because again, like I said in the video, junglers were picking certain champions to capitalize on his champion. The game pace is different. The meta is different. Everything is different on the Chinese super server at this specific rank. Not to say you can't try it. Obviously try it, see what's good about it, maybe see what's weak about it, and then come up with your own hypotheses, come up with your own theories to adapt within your region, your elo, given the game pace, given all these other factors. So you have to remember, guys, items and runes are just tools to help reinforce a champion's identity. Therefore, starting with the champion's identity, then working backwards is a very effective strategy. So let's just say, for example, you are an Azir main. Now, Azir's identity can actually go two different directions. You can view Azir as a scaling teamfight front-to-back sustained damage champion, in which you'd build maybe much more scaling, build things like Nash's, Liandry's, or you can view Azir as a very early aggressive, poke mage, where you want to be going like Comet, Lost Chapter, maybe you might even just rush Ludens, maybe you don't even go Nash's, sorry. There are many ways to interpret champion's identity. So start with what your theory is of that champion, then work backwards. Okay, given this is the way I like to play this champion, what sort of items and what sort of runes would make sense for this champion? Or you can actually do it the other way around, guys. Identify the very strong items, or items that you think are literally just broken by concept, or maybe you think Riot just screwed up, added these certain items into the game, which are very burst oriented. Now, once you understand the identity of those items, then you can actually be like, okay, I believe burst-oriented items are really OP right now. Now I can actually see and test these items and all these different champions to come up with a new, unique strategy. Maybe I'm going to innovate the way to play Azir. Maybe I'm going to innovate the way to play Cassiopeia. Because actually back in the day, some of you may not remember, Cassio wasn't even necessarily just like this sustained damage champion. A lot of people back in the day, when she actually first came out, people were playing her like a poke mage with the Q. And people were building things like Ludens and things like that. Or like, I can't remember the items exactly, but people viewed her less of a sustained damage and just like a Q poke champion. Maybe you're going to be the next person to innovate how to play a certain champion because of the way you've identified the strong items in the game. I don't know, guys. This is the beauty of theory crafting, the beauty of preseason, and the beauty of all these changes. And this is what I love about League of Legends, guys. And the last little point here, guys, because things are going to be changing so rapidly and so much is unknown, you are going to be significantly disadvantaged when only reacting to other people's theories. Okay, so try and get on the forefront, try and start to see what do you think is strong in these games? What do you think is weak? How do you think the meta is shifting? I'm going to be doing plenty of these videos. I'm sure other people are going to be doing plenty of these videos out there in the YouTube content creation world. Try and get ahead of the meta, or at least be in line with the meta so you can see what is strong at the moment, what is weak. This will be very important heading into S11. Now, it's very important you utilize the time within the preseason to potentially refine your champion pool and current style in the way you play mid lane. And the reason this is the case is because I've actually stumbled across this theory called the high platinum breakpoint. I came up with it myself, and I was able to come up with this because I was like just dwelling on, okay, what was getting people results in solo queue? Why were some people able to climb, others weren't? And why I believe this is important is because there's actually a threshold where people need to begin considering shifting the way they play the game. So for the sake of this example, let's just say there are two types of players. Let's call them player 1 and player 2. Player 1, they play very scaling-oriented mid-majors. Maybe they play Orianna, champs like Orianna, Lux, Victor. Maybe they play even, let's say, Azir. Vega, very like, I guess, scaling oriented, mid lane mages, ranged oriented champions. And then on the flip side, we have the second type of players, and maybe they play champions like Echo, they play Katarina, they play Yasuo, they play Zed, Talon, they play Akali. Sorry for my handwriting, guys. Just things like that. They play these very aggressive, assassin oriented champions. Now, what I realized is that if you are the first type of player, that's completely fine. That was like me, and you play them all the way up to platinum, say platinum 2, platinum 1, you're going to be completely fine. Now, at this point in time, when you get to this rank, you have a very big decision to make. This is generally where I call the breakpoint. You can continue to play this style, playing Orianna, Victor, Lux, Vel'Koz, whatever it is, all the way up into whatever your goal is, whether it's Master Tier, whether it's Diamond 1, whether it's Grandmaster, whatever. But if you choose to do this, if you choose to commit to this style all the way up to Master or High Diamond or Grandmaster, which is obviously possible, you are going to pick up a lot of bad habits, and then if you were to try and reach Challenger or go above that, it will be incredibly difficult for you, and you're going to find yourself being a very one-dimensional player. And given the way the game is actually evolving and changing, like, you could get away with this back in the day because it was much slower, people didn't invade as much, priority wasn't as important. But now with the way the game is evolving, it's very burst oriented. The threat is such an important thing, and the games are just decided in the first 10 minutes. This is a little bit outdated. Obviously, you need to have this way of playing the game if you want to play at the highest level, but you can't only rely on it. Now, but the interesting thing is, guys, let's just say you reach Plat 2 and Plat 1, and maybe you play champions like Echo. You played Echo, Katarina, and maybe Akali. And it's usually this sort of player doesn't really exist as often because these sort of players, you don't learn the fundamentals as well with these champions. Generally, most players learn the fundamentals with things like Ori, Lux, things like that. They get to this point in which I would recommend you shift from playing Orianna and Lux and things like that from when you're on Plat 1, Plat 2, to shifting it to these very more aggressive melee, assassin-oriented style of champions. This way, yes, you may actually it might actually decline from Plat 1 all the way to Plat 4, playing Echo and Akali and Silas or whatever it is. But once you pick up these assassins, given you've learned all the fundamentals with these champions like Orianna and things like that, you're going to steamroll all the way to like Master Tier very easily, and then your potential to grow from that point on is much, much higher, and you're going to be a much higher well-rounded mid laner. But for the players that actually, for some reason, let's just say a player was able to get to Plat 1, Plat 2, only playing like Echo, Silas, and Aurelia or whatever, they actually don't really need to learn champions like Ori. They don't actually need to learn control mages. It's not essential. They can actually keep going with this style all the way to Challenger because of the things that you can actually learn and the way you get rewarded for playing this style of champions. That's just the way League is at the moment. Yes, it's ideal that you learn the fundamentals through things like control mages and things like that, but it's not 100% essential. So there are a lot of people out there that do play a lot of mages, which I do recommend. But if you do get to this point, guys, whether it's you get to this point now, you got to it this season, maybe you're going to get to it next season, maybe it's something you should consider. Right, so now here are just a few champions on like a scaling little scale here of difficulty in which I would recommend. So on the bottom half of the scale here, we have more of like the easy, simple, easier to execute assassins, things like Zed, Talon, Echo, Fizz. If you are a beginner to assassins, these are the sorts of assassins that I would recommend because you can actually still learn a lot of the fundamentals with these champions. You can learn the fundamentals with things like Talon and Echo. You actually just straight up can, especially Echo. But Zed and Fizz are also very good. Now, Akali's kind of in the middle ground. Akali is quite tricky and not someone I would recommend for a beginner assassin player. And then obviously Aurelia and Silas are a little bit harder, and then Yone and things like Zoe are again much harder again. So this is something for you to consider. If you have any more questions about this, let me know. It's not about the champion specifically. It's more about your... And actually, by the way, sorry on a little tangent here, guys. If you've experienced something like this before, maybe you got all the way to High Diamond and then you feel like you were capped and then you learned these champions, went back and then improved in the long run. If you have done that, let me know. I'm like 85% sure, 90% sure that this is the way to go. And I actually did this without even really knowing it. When I was back in the day, I actually learned the game only through champions like Orianna and stuff. and then it made my life incredibly miserable relearning Assassins. But the players that only started playing Assassins first, they were way ahead of me. They were way, way ahead of me. So anyway, let me know how this goes for you, if this makes sense to you. And this is something I really, really do believe in. And it's something you guys need to consider for S11. Now for a very important topic, guys. Invisible narratives and mental blocks. You know, we all have them. There's these toxic things beneath the surface, preventing us from climbing, making our solo queue experience incredibly miserable. We all have them. You can't escape them. So the preseason is the perfect time to tackle these head on, because they're not going to go away, guys. They're going to be there for S11, 12, 13, 14, 15. They're going to always be there until we address them. Now, you may ask, okay, Curtis, how do I go about that? This is the process that I have personally used and has worked for me. Number one, you need to recognize it or write it down or talk about it with someone else. You can't just keep it in your head. You've got to express it and actually recognize what actually is at play. Now, once you have recognized it or wrote it down or started talking about it with someone else, realize the function that it was previously serving. A lot of these invisible narratives are just either trying to protect your ego, maybe they're trying to protect yourself from being exposed in terms of embarrassment, maybe you're trying to put up a front in terms of making yourself look good in front of your friends. Whatever it is, they always serve a purpose. Or maybe it's just purely preventing you from getting into the review. There are a lot of these weird, toxic, invisible narratives or mental blocks that are just trying to protect you or serve some weird purpose. You need to address that. And the third step here, which is actually probably the most important step out of the four, is to bring to the surface how this invisible narrative or mental block has negatively impacted your solo queue experience and overall just your life in general. Now, the reason this is very important is because I believe painful experiences bring about change. And without doing this step, how are you going to have the motivation or the willingness or the incentivization in order to make the change? Because in order to face these invisible narratives, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt your ego. It's going to hurt your pride. It's going to make you feel very exposed. And if you don't really connect with what this invisible narrative or mental block is doing to you, then you're just not going to have the motivation. This is just for me anyway. I just don't see how you're going to make that change. Because yes, you may recognize it. You may even see the function it was serving. And you may even know what you need to put there instead. But if you really don't connect with this third step, it may be very hard for you to make this change in the first place. And the final step here, guys, after research and learning and watching videos on it, getting some coaching, whatever it is, you need to state how you're going to view that area instead. Okay, so this is actually an example below, guys, of one of the guys in my Discord sent me all of the invisible narratives that he actually listed out. I'm not going to say his name, but props to him for actually having the balls to send this sort of thing to someone else. So for example, if we go to, okay, I should never have to be carried. All right, let's just go through this invisible narrative. I should never have to be carried. Finally, he's gone through this entire process and he gets to the last one. He has to go to this point and say, okay, how am I going to view this point instead? What should I have instead of this bullshit narrative? Okay. Maybe he has to realize that there are some games he has to get carried. Whether it's he got counterpicked in the draft, whether something happened in the early game and someone has the tools to carry, whether his champion actually got countered by the entire composition, or maybe the enemy made incredibly inefficient plays to get you behind, but in the process of doing so, your other laners are very far ahead. Maybe the enemy support roamed mid like 3 times and is down 2 levels, or the jungler's actually ganked mid 3 times and is down 3 levels, but everyone else is really far ahead, and your job is actually just to straight up get carried. Okay, I don't know. So you have to see what else you will put there instead. That's very, very important as well, guys. So hopefully, I mean, guys, this is going to be some really tough work. Get into the thick of it. Use your friends, use your colleagues, use the Discord, things like that. This is where this sort of work will really pay dividends heading into S11. Now, another thing I recommend doing before heading into ranked in Season 11 is to reflect on the previous year. And what I'm going to do now is talk about my biggest regrets of Season 10. Things I wish I either tackled sooner or maybe just straight up approached completely differently. And the first one is that I forgot the importance of champion mastery. And because I forgot this, it led me to shifting my champion pool a trillion times and not adopting the right mindset. And the right mindset is this, okay? One of my favorite champions is Orianna. Rather than making the excuse of, oh, Orianna's just trash, I'm just going to play a different champion, I should be thinking in the sense of, okay, I love Orianna. I'm going to try and find a way to make her work. Whether it's through adapting my build, adapting my runes, adapting the way I play the lane, whether it's to, navigate a matchup in a very unique way where maybe I put multiple points in E and then auto attack the wave a bunch and shove level 1 and 2 to get the wave here. Like, use my creativity to create favorable situations with my champion, utilizing my champion mastery. Champion mastery always pays dividends, and it always gets me the result in the long run. And this has happened so many years where I waste probably the first 5-6 months of a year trying to figure out my champion pool, and then I'm like, all right, screw it, I'm just going to play my best champions, and then I just climb. And I always forget champion mastery, so I'm never going to make this mistake again. Champion mastery trumps everything. And number two, not tackling my invisible narrative about the inability to improve micro. I would say for the first 8 months of this year, so 7 months of this year, I had this invisible narrative that micro was just pure talent. I couldn't fix my micro, I couldn't make it better. And then when I finally shifted my mindset, I'm like, screw it, Curtis. You can. Just have a go, try it, figure out a creative way to improve it. And it did. And I wish that I really tackled this sooner, because maybe my micro could have been so much better earlier on in the year. Now, this third point was probably one of the biggest contributing factors to me underperforming within solo queue. And all that was happening was that I was just so incredibly self-conscious about my solo queue rank. And the reason I was so self-conscious was because I was caring so much about everyone else's opinion about me and my level of play. I was listening to everyone, whether it was a random comment in YouTube, a random comment in a Twitch stream, a random comment within a game I just played. I was listening to everything. And when I realized that these people know nothing about me, they know nothing about the amount of effort I put into this game, they know nothing about what I'm improving on, they know nothing about my learning journey, nothing, or my learning objectives, then why would I listen to them? It means nothing. It's negligible. I'm agnostic about what they say about me. It's just, I'm just going to completely ignore it. And when I realized was that solo queue is just an opportunity for me to express my best self, and an opportunity for me to, continue my own learning journey. When I just realized this stuff, I just didn't give a shit about what anyone else thought about my gameplay, unless they were, a pro player, a friend of mine, a high elo friend of mine, someone that actually had my best interests at heart, or someone in the Discord that actually watched my gameplay quite often, or someone I respected like a fellow coach. Then I'm not really going to put much emphasis, on what they say about my gameplay. And this really helped me gain back my confidence and just focus on myself and only listen to what was important, and not listen to. And actually, one little tangent point here. If you want to actually do this, you can't just ignore the negative and focus on the positive stuff. You got to ignore both the positives and the negatives, because if you feel good and let yourself feel good about other people's compliments on your gameplay, then again, you're letting other people's opinions affect you in any way, shape, or form. You can't allow that to happen. Okay, that's another nice little side point there. The fourth one here is that I didn't really utilize the mute all tool, maybe because I thought I was a monk or that I was untiltable, whatever. But what I realized is that when the games were just incredibly toxic, people just saying bullshit, it's better just to mute all, unmute the pings, and get into the gameplay. And number 5 here, guys, I realized that subconsciously I was okay with autopiloting games, especially on my Smurf account. And I'm going to set a goal for myself for S11 where I really want to minimize the amount of games I autopilot. I want to have intention with every single game I play, whether I'm playing this game for fun, and that's okay, as long as that's my intention, or I'm playing this game to learn X champion, or this thing about this champion, or whether I'm playing this game to refine X learning objective. I just want to make sure I'm playing every game with intention, because I don't want to piss away my time and my life just by randomly autopiloting games and not really learning anything. And number 6, not seeing the value in dodging. And I always created all these reasons in my head not to dodge. Maybe because I was just addicted to League of Legends in general. I don't know. And again, I'm going to emphasize dodging next season, as long as dodging is still a thing, because I heard rumblings of maybe dodging being affected in S11. And the last one here, taking too long to create a schedule for increasing my solo queue intensity. There were so many days at the beginning of the season where I was just mindlessly grinding games. My intensity was through the floor, just had zero intensity, and was really impacting or negatively impacting my level of play within solo queue. Now, given I've recommended using the preseason to learn new champions, I wanted to quickly talk about the 3 phases of learning a new champion. Now, phase 1, I call the fun zone. This is just the first 10 games of playing a new champion. This is the definition of blissful ignorance and the power of having a fresh mindset. There's no mental baggage, no toxic expectations, you're borderline childlike in nature. Now, I recommend coming in with a very open, fun mindset. Get a feel for the basic trading patterns, basic champion identity. Don't even bother reviewing games. Just play the champion, play the game, have fun. Now, basic power spikes and basic power troughs will start to become apparent, and you're also going to realize how much you don't know about this champion, which actually can be quite fun at times. And this third point always fascinates me. And the thing is, guys, you will usually have a decent amount of success playing this new champion purely because you have this new outlook, fresh mindset, no mental baggage, no crazy expectations. And this is why you will usually win probably the first, or at least 7 out of the first 10 games, or even 6 or 7. It won't be that bad. And this actually is a testament to how much mental baggage we have when playing our main champions, whether it's because we have crazy expectations about the way a laning phase should play out against a certain matchup, or whether we have these expectations about ourselves having to carry with this champion, or whether, whatever it is, we just have so much mental baggage and so much toxic expectations, it can actually make us play worse even on our main champions. And the fourth point here, guys, play around, don't overcomplicate anything, basic builds, basic runes, even if they're suboptimal, it doesn't really matter. Usually, guys, you only want to be playing normals or ranked on a Smurf account. Don't go on your main account for these first 10 games. Take your time. Normals are completely fine for these first 10 games. Now, the second phase I call the tilt zone. Most people actually don't get past this stage due to the lack of significance put on champion mastery as a concept. And this phase can actually be made much easier by watching guides or other educational content and high elo players. Emphasis should still be, though, largely on creating your own hypotheses and seeing the trends, like what is happening in your games. This is the most brutal part of the learning process because the fun is worn off, right? You don't have that open, childlike mindset anymore. You're getting into the shit. You're getting into the thick of it. You're starting to lose more games now because you're starting to realize how bad you are at this champion. The losses might start to stack up. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to realize that, oh, I have no idea how to manage my waves. I don't know how to play these matchups. I'm just always getting beaten by this Katarina in this matchup. Whatever it is, this is where things get very, very brutal. But if you guys can actually get through this process and get towards champion mastery to phase 3, things will get much, much easier and much more fun. The second point here, guys, you're going to begin to understand how to categorize matchups. Like, okay, against these sorts of assassins, I want to be doing this or building this. Against these control mages, I want to be roughly doing this. You're going to start to see how to categorize matchups and how to roughly play these against different sorts of champions. You're going to begin to understand what thrives with your champion in the jungle, like what sort of mid-jungle combos are great. You're going to start to understand what sort of basic wave states your champion thrives with. You're going to start to get more familiar with your power troughs, power spikes in depth. You're going to realize why the counters actually are the counters. You're not really going to know how to deal with the counters yet, but you really are going to know why they're the counters. You're going to have much more insight on how to navigate skirmishes and team fights. You're going to understand optimal game pace. You're going to start to see the trends of what is actually leading to wins and losses with your champion. And you're also going to start to see the significance and the importance of certain abilities within your kit and the way they are used. For me, I'm in the process of actually learning Yone, and what I've realized is that the way you use your E is so important. Now, I don't know how to use it yet, but all I know is that it's very important. So now I'm on that process. I'm going to start to head to the tilt zone soon. And as long as I put it in perspective, I won't get too tilted. But this is where you've got to be very aware, very self-conscious, very aware that you can just tilt off the face of the planet and never make it to phase 3. And phase 3, guys, I call the optimization zone. This is the most fun part and where the real learning begins. This is where you get the most value from actually watching the one tricks and high level players, because you actually understand the significance of all the little details and all the little intricacies. And this is actually where you can actually start learning the game through the champion and just not the champion anymore. That's also very important to understand. This phase requires the most focused and intense practice because this is where all the basics are just down pat, it's already muscle memory. We are now focusing on the 1%ers and optimizing every element of gameplay in order to reach champion mastery. This is where we're looking at creative usage of abilities to optimize trading patterns. We're looking at in-depth wave state analysis and setting yourself up for success in the future, understanding matchup intricacies, micro and macro, knowing how to minimize and deal with counters, rune and build optimization, knowing how to adapt to game pace through your build and runes, knowing how to actually shift your role within each game as well, given your rune and build choice, in-depth understanding of mid-jungle combos and how you need to play out skirmishes accordingly, and actually know how team compositions affect not only the game pace, but your role in team fights, the role in skirmishes, and how you want to play out the game as a whole, given what's on your team and what's on the enemy team. And lastly, just creative playmaking in general while in the mid to late game. So as you can see, guys, this is where things get very detailed. This is where you really got to start watching the one tricks or watch my more in-depth, maybe my pro play insights or the more intricate stuff I talk about within my champion guides. This is where the optimization zone really comes into play. So thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions at all, drop them below in the comment section. Hopefully this really helps you when heading into preseason. Only a few more days to go. Good luck, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.